Making a job offer to a candidate while privately advising them to decline. I work at a small technology company, 12 employees. This past summer I managed a bright, talented intern, a rising college senior, who did great work. My boss, the CEO, and others in the company want us to make a full-time offer to this intern, and by all reasonable assessment she absolutely deserves the offer. Because I was her manager, the task of discussing the offer and working out the details has fallen to me. We don't have a real HR department to coordinate hiring. Problem is, the company is very dysfunctional, and I strongly believe that even if it survives until her graduation, it'll be on a clear path to failure. I'm personally in the midst of looking for other opportunities. And the person she would report to, even if I were to stay, is an absolute nightmare to work with. I was able to keep him at a distance during the internship. I feel terrible extending the offer and having to convince her to join a company when in my heart I think it would be a terrible career move for someone's first job after graduation. That said, she earned the offer and I wouldn't feel right to stomp it out internally without letting her make the choice. I'm considering making the offer while privately advising her to decline it. Are there any ethical, legal, etc. implications that I should be aware of? Or any reason not to do this?
Meet her for a coffee. If you're a guy, mention that it's to talk about her career and meet her in a totally non-romantic setting, otherwise she might get scared you are interested in her romantically. During a one-to-one conversation there are plenty of ways you can say something without saying anything that could cost you your job. Ask her about her plans. When she says she's applying, stress that you will be happy to provide references. Mention that a job in your company is also an option, that you were happy with her, but imply that many changes are coming. The culture is something that not everybody likes and her new boss has a management style very different to yours. Stress that she should think it over and that you won't take offense if she rejects the offer. It's a lot about your tone. You shouldn't say too much, but if she's smart she will understand. Referring to the previous answer, yes, you need to stay loyal to your company. But if the company is really so bad, the woman would quit quickly anyways. So it is in the interest of the company for you to let her know what she can expect.
Sounds to me like you don't owe this company any particular allegiance. The key to being ethical with this is separate your business responsibilities from your personal obligation not to harm this person. Send the intern the offer from your corporate email with no comment on its desirability one way or the other. Then phone the intern, meet in person on your own time and give her your thoughts on the company as an impartial human being. She is then free to make up her own mind about what to do.
I'm considering making the offer while privately advising her to decline it. Are there any ethical, legal, etc. implications that I should be aware of? Or any reason not to do this? Your boss told you to make the offer, and you acknowledge that she deserves the offer. Thus, you have to do it. If she asks you about the offer or company, you can carefully disclose some of your feelings while still making it clear that this is solely her decision to make. And you can offer to be a great reference for her if this offer isn't what she is looking for. Remember, she may not share your feelings about the company and manager. And while it's not what you want, it may still be what she wants.
One major reason not to do this is, what if she accepts the offer, despite your warnings? You are now in a very awkward position. Your junior is now in a position to blackmail you. This is especially important as you are considering jumping ship. Your reputation capital gained at your current firm is at its most valuable. In fact, you are vulnerable to blackmail or the consequences of inadvertent disclosure whether or not she accepts the offer. Regardless of whether the moral thing to do is telling the excellent former intern that your company is toxic and destined for the corporate dustbin, you are now putting your own career in jeopardy. A missed opportunity is a relatively minor thing early on in your career. Later on, being seen to act against your employer's interests and in a matter that is entirely work-related, well, that's a line on your CV that you don't want. Regarding the decision itself and its potential consequences, let's look at its moral, legal and financial aspects, examining each separately. Morally, telling her the lay of the land is absolutely the correct thing to do. Companies' personalities are a legal fiction and you owe them no moral loyalty. Pay them no heed when considering right and wrong. However, No one should presume to tell you that you must put the interests of others before your own. Legally, presuming a common law jurisdiction, there's multiple potential heads of claim your company might pursue against you, if they were to find out about your thwarting their attempt to recruit the intern. The most relevant tort is tortious interference with business relations. There might be a case to answer for defamation or possibly malicious falsehood, depending on exactly what is said. Truth is always a defense in defamation actions, but, roughly, if you say something that would make someone think less of another, they can establish a prima facie case. Actions in contract are also very possible. Even if your employment contract doesn't appear to cover this explicitly, good faith and fair dealing is an implied term in all contracts, in the US, at least. The duplicity involved in paying lip service to your duties to your employer while secretly undermining them demonstrates clear bad faith on your part, and would be a breach of contract. Some other answers seem to suggest that your duty to your employer stops when you clock off. This isn't true. If all this seems unfair to you, consider if you interfered with a potential client for your firm similarly, submitting a tender to satisfy your boss while privately advising the new client not to accept it. From a legal perspective, this situation is pretty much the same, although in this example we don't have the emotive factor of a deserving young person potentially being harmed by your inaction, so it is perhaps easier to see why the law works the way it does. Regardless, the legal system is largely indifferent to whether we might think it is fair or not. In addition, regardless of whether or not you are doing the company damage in legal terms, if your current company were to sue you on any grounds, it wouldn't be hard for a good attorney to find some pretext to get this situation into evidence to, correctly, portray you as disloyal. This is particularly bad if you're in a jurisdiction where a jury is the trier of fact in civil cases. Now, all of this is contingent on the company finding out about you telling the intern and being able to prove it. This is, in itself, unlikely, if you are careful, so while nothing will probably come of this, legally, you're doing yourself no favors at all by telling the intern how things are. You are creating potential liability on several fronts, as well as giving your firm an excellent reason to fire you. Financially, there's no upside, only potential downside. You're risking getting fired and getting sued, as well as your future employability, and, grim as it is to say, you are gaining nothing quantifiable, nothing that will put bread on the table, by telling the intern how things are. No attorney would tell you it was in your best interest to do this. Probably, you'd get away with it, and nothing would happen, other than you would get a warm glow from having gained the gratitude of the former intern. However, if this whole thing went wrong, it would probably go wrong very badly for you. To repeat, only downside. By telling the intern how things are, you aren't just being honest. You're asking her for her confidence, and that is by no means a given. A particularly mercenary and ambitious personality might even smell an opportunity in your indiscretion. I can completely understand how someone might nevertheless want to go ahead and warn the intern despite this advice. However, doing so is not the sensible and considered thing to do. It's your life you're talking about, more than hers, and prudence and discretion should be your watchwords. If this does go wrong for you, it will come from either lack of caution on your part or from the indiscretion, deliberate or otherwise, of the former intern herself regarding your actions here. Perhaps more likely if she takes the job, but the legal consequences are such that you are vulnerable either way. So, if you do choose to tell her, consider putting as much distance as you can between yourself and the advice, to minimize evidence and to ensure that there is nothing that can be traced back to you or that otherwise identifies you. An anonymous note, for instance, would probably be taken much less seriously by the former intern than advice not to accept coming directly from you, but it would be rather less likely to come back and bite you as well.
Advice could be problematic. Informed consent is not present her with the offer, as well as the relevant information that she needs to make an informed decision. The offer is not only for a position with a particular compensation package, it is for an employment relationship with the company. Like any relationship, there are not only benefits, but liabilities and responsibilities. She needs to be made aware of the reasons that underlie your desire to recommend against taking the position, and then leave her to make her own decision. As part of this, highlight things that she may otherwise overlook, such as the fact that in her role as an intern, she has been insulated from some of the less palatable aspects of working there, as well as the fact that her work experience and her exemplary performance would qualify her to work at any number of other employers, and that it's always wise to assess multiple offers rather than accepting the first opportunity that presents itself. Also stress that you'd be happy to serve as a reference not only for this role, but for any role outside of the company. Once you have laid all of your cards on the table, the decision to accept or reject the offer will truly be her decision, which she will be able to make with eyes wide open. She may choose to take the job and regret it, but if she does, it will be her choice and her learning experience. Unless you give her the relevant information, you're depriving her of that opportunity to decide for herself. I appreciate your desire to go to bat for her. You just need to do so in a way that is equitable for all parties concerned. As long as you stick to the facts, you should be fine.